Tom, thanks very much for speaking to us. You know, we've come to these sessions before, and there's been terrible news about the sands business. At some stages, we thought they were going to dispose of it. The news is very good today, described as a star performer. Is this sustainable, do you think, Tom?
Martin, thank you for having me, first of all. Pleasure to be with you. I think it is sustainable. The mineral sands business is a very strong industry. It's Exxaro's mineral sands operation, now Tronox mineral sands operation, is the second largest provider in the entire world of these materials. And they primarily supply housing-related end customer markets. So tiles for zircon, paint and plastics for the rest of their mineral sands materials. Those markets are soft right now. The United States housing is soft. The Chinese housing market has been slowed down by the government's policies to limit inflation and prevent a housing bubble. And of course, Europe, as we know, is soft. All of those conditions, we believe, are transitory. We think the markets in all three of those major areas of the world will recover. The question is when. Is it later this half or is it early 2013? But I'm very confident that they will recover and the mineral sands business will benefit along with that recovery.
And prices at the moment, could you give us a word picture of the prices of the various parts of the sand business, the zircon and the pigment and all the other aspects of it? What are prices like at the moment?
Through 2011, prices for pigment, again, which is the element that goes into paints and plastics, rose by probably 45% in 2011, just from January 1 to December 31st. The mineral sands producers, as you referred to earlier, they had many fixed price contracts, and so their performance did not track as quickly as the pigment performance improved. But those contracts are rolling off for all the mineral sands producers, including our own, and therefore their performance is now catching up to the price increases. So the interesting aspect about thinking about the mineral sands business is even if today's prices were to come down a little bit, which is what we think may happen, the difference between the contract prices that they signed in 2009 and the new prices that they'll get in 2012 is still going to be very, very great, very positive for the companies.
Yes, and we saw this huge urbanization in the emerging markets. And we hear now that, if the trend continues, I think one company said last week that there could be something like $80 trillion. The figure was like so huge in just residential and commercial buildings going to 2025, and that would be about this, take up the land mass of Austria. Is this music to the ears of your business?
Absolutely, Martin. If I knew you better, I'd be dancing now as I hear those statistics. Not that I believe that, I don't know those numbers, obviously, but clearly in the emerging markets will drive growth for our businesses. We look at the per capita consumption, that is the consumption of our products per person in the economies around the world. And in some of the advanced economies, the developed economies, the per capita consumption ranges between about 3 kilograms per person up to, in the highest case, almost 5. In these emerging markets that are growing so much faster than the rest of the world, it's still less than 1 kilogram per person and even less than that, less than half. So as these countries move their people up the economic development ladder, and as they move from the countryside and agricultural work into more of the cities and do other kinds of work, that will boost residential real estate and commercial real estate construction, and that in turn will require more tile, more paint, more plastics, which is what we sell into. So we're very optimistic about those trends. Those are clearly helpful trends for us.
And we've spoken about the macro picture. Can we swing down into the micro picture now? Do you assume, as Tronox, responsibility for these operating assets of the company Exxaro? And we're looking at Namakwa Sands, we're looking at the KwaZulu-Natal operations and Fairbreeze, which seems to have some environmental issues at the moment. Do you take over operational responsibility for all that now?
Yes. Those businesses are now part of Tronox. And Exxaro owns a little less than 40% of the stock of the ownership of Tronox. So that's how that transaction worked. the team that has run those mines and those operations for many years came with the transaction and remains the same team that works for Tronox now. So David Southey at Namako Sands, and Niels Oosterhuis at KZN, and Trevor Aaron here running the group as a whole. All of those people stay in place, and their teams have stayed in place. So on a day-to-day operating basis, there's very little change. But we now they now are part of Tronox as opposed to a part of Exxaro.
Can you see value addition here? I mean, you are in Tronox. It's a global player in this market. It's been a bit of a niche diversification for Exxaro. Is there an opportunity with that bigger picture that you've got that gives you confidence you can add some value?
Absolutely. I mean, we know just from our work with the mineral sands businesses over the last months since we began to prepare and plan for this transaction, we know that we can move our purchases of mineral sands material to this particular operation instead of some of the others, the other competitors that Exxaro formerly had, and they know that they have a customer for their material. And so each of us is in a stronger position in a soft market, and when the market turns again and becomes strong, we'll be even in a better position than that, because we can always optimize our use of material from our own mineral sands business. So we feel very, very optimistic that this will be a win-win for both parties and that we'll create real value there. And secondly, knowing that we have 750,000 tons of pigment feedstock and about 250,000 tons of zircon, we also are in a position to grow the business globally. Whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Asia Pacific, or whether it's in other emerging markets, we know we have the supply to be able to feed our pigment production, and therefore we have more confidence in growing, which again in turn will increase value for all of us. Right now we're very focused on making sure that the integration of these businesses with our pigment business goes well. Africa is obviously a growing continent in the world, and so we're open to new growth opportunities wherever they may be.
Final question, just give us a little bit of a word picture on Tronox, a little bit of the history, where it is, it's sort of the value, what its revenue is, etc.
We've said that this year we think the revenue from the combined organization, assuming we had been together for the full year, the revenue would be about $2.5 billion. And the cash flow that business would produce after we paid all of our bills and we set aside money for the dividends to our shareholders and all that would be over $500 million. So it's a very strong company. It's grown very strongly in the last 2 years or so, and we're very optimistic that we're going to continue to grow. There's a little soft patch in the second half of 2012, but our longer term horizons are very bright, and we're very optimistic about it.